Oh boys, that's gonna be my video about the Simucube3 Pro, in which I will give mostly attention to the force feedback experience, as in my opinion that is the most important part of direct drive base system, and as that base is the most expensive on the market in that power range up to 25 Newton meters, and lacking few important features for the sim community right now, like USB pass-through. If the force feedback doesn't really exceed the expectations, that's gonna be disaster. And again, starting with the necessary disclaimer, Simucube have sent all that equipment for test and review purposes without any conditions, and I cannot afford to be biased because every other company does the same thing. So I guess the most fair way is to be as objective as possible for everyone. Now, that being said, let me explain first how I'm gonna use that in those tests. Right now I'm using the 200mm extension kit from Simucube with the wireless steering wheel from Simucube, for which I'm gonna make separate review, but because some of you will need to know if it's good or not, my quick opinion is that is a little bit overpriced in my opinion for what it is. But the problem is there is no much choices right now, and if you choose that base, you're gonna be a bit limited in terms of wireless connectivity. But the way I'm gonna use it also is with that 70mm adapter, using the energy style quick release systems, which I have set to all of my different steering wheels from LMP to GT and rally cars. And I'm gonna use USB connectivity, which I do for many years. For me personally, it's not a problem, but for some of you, maybe gonna be problem. I don't know, that's up to you to decide. Again, the steering wheel is expensive, but it's very good. It's super sturdy. It has tons of different inputs, rotaries, and 7-way funky switches, lights. It is super sturdy. The quick release is also very expensive, which they have lowered the price from 170 to 145. It is nice quick release system. Again, I will talk about that in the steering wheel video, which I'm gonna do in probably a week time from now. However, as I've said, later I'm gonna use that kit, which will allow me to use my favorite steering wheels. So, force feedback. I did some video with my first impressions with the old firmware, where I had to use tons of filters to achieve my favorite settings, and if you follow that channel, you know how I prefer force feedback. I don't want to fight with the force feedback. I want to achieve settings which the base itself can autocorrect all those extreme situations, and my goal is to have as much light hands as possible to feel as much more is possible for my driving. And with that last firmware, things have changed drastically, and I really mean drastically. I have never seen any direct drive wheel base achieving that performance with zero filters. I guess Simucube have played a lot with that firmware, and I will start driving and will try to explain what I'm feeling. You will also see how the base reacts, and you can judge for yourself. First, those will be the settings, which usually are the worst case scenario for every direct drive wheel base on the market I have ever tested. And it will be, I will boost the road texture. I won't gonna use any of the friction and dumping to calm down the base. and we'll use simulator force feedback on 100%. What happens usually with settings like those is all bases introduce tons of oscillations the wheel just goes crazy and overshoot. That was the case with the first firmware of the Simucube3 done, and Will from Boosted Media had huge problem with that. I had to use tons of friction dumping and inertia to calm the base down, but let's see what we're gonna feel with that last firmware. Again, my goal is in settings is always, can I achieve calm talking feedback, which allows me to have super light hands so I can feel everything possible from the force feedback. And right now I feel like there is a lot of road texture. But there is like almost zero oscillation. I didn't even know this is possible to be achieved through firmware. Simucube did it. Right now, what I'm trying to do is just point the steering wheel through the apex with my palm and let it do the job. Like if there is a need of auto-correction, the steering wheel must be capable to do that on itself without me trying to fight against those spikes. So like, you can really see how much the steering wheel is picking right now in terms of road texture and feedback without going into those crazy oscillations. And there is tons of feedback. In little words, what that means right now is no one can go wrong with the settings. I mean, even in the worst case scenario, even if somebody doesn't have any idea what he's doing with the sliders and is everything like on minimum, still the force feedback is absolutely manageable and it does the work. Now let's move to more difficult car and see if that will be the same behavior. So that's the Dallara LMP car. Usually those cars are going very quickly, very crazy in terms of force feedback. And one weird thing is it feels like they have already hidden filters which achieve that, but it's more like progressive in terms of how much the filter works depending on the speed, the road texture, the cornering. So what I mean is, like, the force feedback is heavy in that speed, But as much more I gain speed, it becomes heavier. So let's see if we're gonna get some oscillations on the straight. Zero filters, and even around the center it feels super stiff. And I don't really think I felt that on any other direct drive base. Again, with zero filters. Wow. I can definitely feel like I'm driving a completely different car now. The force feedback is very, very different. Somehow it feels like I'm driving on really wide slicks. Like those tires feels huge right now. And again, remember, no filters. You can see how much texture is on the steering wheel right now. Ooh. As much more speed I gain, it feels like that much more stiff it becomes around the center. Again, zero filters. And to be honest, as I've said, I cannot afford to be, biased, because every company does the same. I have to be objective. And in my opinion, even without using any filters, I don't know how they achieved that. Even before using any of the telemetry extra features, which gonna give us more in terms of raw feeling, I can already say this is the best force feedback experience I ever had. Period. From that stage right now, we can continue adding and boosting the different effects through the telemetry. Now, let me show you a few effects we can use and gain something more in terms of experience. Now, we have a few different options in terms of telemetry features, and those are road texture, cornering, ABS, RPMs, and gear changing. There are also a few different presets from light, immersive, livery, aggressive, and then customs. We can do whatever we wish. Let's try the light and activate the road texture and the cornering effect. Because that car doesn't have ABS, I'm not going to use that. RPMs are effect I personally don't like. And let's test the gear changing, how that feels. Still, there won't be any damping and friction. Zero filters. You can see already how much more effects there are on the road texture. And the base become already very stiff in cornering, and that's because of the cornering effect. So as much more I'm steering, that much more of that effect I can feel. It's like the wheelbase going from 12 Newton meter while cornering goes to 16 Newton meter, holding torques. I already think that is a little bit too harsh for me, but let's go on the straight and see if there will be any oscillations with those extra effects. No oscillations at all. But I really feel like I have to fight right now while cornering. Yep. So that cornering effect is a little bit too much for my like. And what I'm gonna do is I will turn it just down to 3% and see how that's gonna feel. In low speed, still the steering wheel is a bit lighter. As much more the car gains speed because of the downforce, the steering will become harder, stiffer. You see all those vibrations? Oh, there was little lock. Which I felt instantly from the force feedback, instantly become light. And again, all those vibrations are raw texture, which I can feel through my hands. I'm not sure I can feel the gear effect. Is it on? Let me check. Oh, it's on, but it's quite low. Gear change effect. So let's go to custom. 25%, whatever that means. Let's see how that feels. It's gonna be a fun experience or distracting. Oh. Okay, for some reason it kicks to just the right side. No matter which way I go, up or down shifting. Ui. So that's the effect. It kicks, but it's like too much on max. So let's try to turn this down. So around 3%. It kicks a little bit. Now, one fun part is you can choose each of those effects and then just test them without even driving. For example, motor vibrations. So I can feel each effect without driving, but as I've said, I don't like this one. ABS. I don't know if you can see the vibrations. Now you can definitely see the vibrations. That will be the experience when the ABS kicks on. And that ABS is super instant in comparison to the motion rig and the active pedals. They kick absolutely together, so there is no lag between all those. And ABS will be definitely very important for people who don't have any feedback for that. Especially for iRacing, is so important to stay around that ABS to optimize your braking. So, gear change effect, I have it on my motion, so I don't need it, but you saw how it reacts. And from now on, you can just play and boost all those different effects to bring the entire experience more alive or more mute, whatever you wish. Now, let's move to the other quick release system. As I've said, I'm gonna make review of that steering wheel separately. But now I really want to drive with my favorite wheels, those different cars, and see how that's gonna feel. What I'm gonna need to do to move to that energy quick release system is I have to use that 70mm adapter, but to do that I have to change their quick release connectivity here. First I have to unscrew and take off the connection. The front part of the Simucube3 quick release is off, and next part is let's push that cable a little bit inside and to touch the adapter. So that adapter is set, and again I'm gonna use energy style, but whatever quick release you have in 70mm pattern, you can use that. And there we go. Being logged into Simucube ecosystem is a bit of overstatement. Of course, there is no USB pass-through option for third-party steering wheels, but still you can use the base and continue using your own wheels with your own quick release via USB. And if you are like me, using all those wheels over all those years with cables dangling around, it's not gonna be a huge problem. But for those who really want clean design with USB pass-through and short cables, or just even connectivity like Dan Suzuki does with different bases, well, you're out of luck. And here we go, boys. Now I can use all my wheels with energy style quick release, but of course I have to use my USB cables directly connected to the PC. And one important thing to know is they told me they work on Simucube2 adapter, which means from January all the guys who have old Simucube2 steering wheels will be able to use their quick releases and their wheels. And that being said, I'm not here to judge. If you really need wireless connectivity with other wheels, there won't be any possibility to do that with pass-through USB. But again, for me personally, that's how I use all my wheels for so many years. It doesn't bother me at all. I have made some cable management so the cable doesn't dangle into my feet. It makes no huge difference. It is up to you to judge if that is a huge problem for you or not. Definitely wireless connectivity is a beautiful thing, but maybe for some people won't matter at all, like me. Now let's turn the feedback quite high and see if with those same settings we're gonna get some oscillations. That's crazy. I don't know how they achieved that. It's like AI. Oh my god. Can't even turn. This is power I won't ever use. But again, that software does absolutely incredible job. It's absolutely crazy. It does everything on its own whenever it needs. Even in those super high torques. I don't know why you want to use that much torque for driving. But again, I'm not here to judge. And the main point is you can do that. So let's put some relaxing torques and do a lap in a relaxing manner and see what we're gonna achieve. Let's drive with zero effort. Without any pressure, maximum relaxing hands, tons of feedback. I really love those relaxing experiences. Can we hit 57? It looks like we are close. Not really, but still. Relaxing WAP, zero effort, no pressure, feeling everything, just awesome. Let's move to LMP. Well, another favorite steering wheel, again with energy cell and cable, which I use anyway with every other base I use, so not huge problem. That is Le Mans Ultimate, in which Dan Suzuki had enormous problem with the first firmware. But let's check if that's gonna be the case. Now, again, using zero filters. It already feels like there is some kind of artificial dampening. The steering wheel feels supernatural. That's crazy. It's like AI is working behind the software and choosing where each effects to kick. It feels smooth, and definitely there are tons of effects I can feel through the steering wheel. Come on, no tires at all. And those are quite high settings. I usually not gonna... Come on, why you don't turn? And that is quite high force feedback setting. I'm so bad in that game. But my main goal is anyway to show you what is going on with the force feedback. So I can definitely feel tons of effects, and there is no oscillations and any crazy behavior. It's crazy. I'm so bad in that game. But anyway, that is not the point. It doesn't matter how slow or fast am I. The thing is, the feedback is absolutely amazing. Oh, come on! Well, going to Assetto Corsa Competizione with the BMW. Let's see how that's gonna feel. Absolutely the same result. I mean, across every game with those settings, the result is absolutely the same. It's like there is tons of feedback. tons of detail. And all that with absolutely zero filters. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I don't know how they really achieved that. This feels like force feedback 2.0. And I'm not really sure if they achieved that through the new hardware they're using. But if I have to guess, I believe that is through the hardware, because if it was possible, they were going to do that 100% with the Simucube 2. I really feel like they kept something in secret. And I really hope someone will crack the code. I will definitely want to see that quality of force feedback in every direct drive wheelbase. First, starting with the negatives. One is the price, which in terms of competition on the market right now, this is the most expensive direct drive base in that power range. But if I compare it to the Simucube 2 Pro, and not with the current, prices where they really try to get rid from those units they already have, it is just, I think, €100 more expensive, but it has better electronics, better encoder, twice more precise. It has that link, which is quite expensive part, and it has the premium button box, which in the Simucube 2 series costed €140, so being like €100 more expensive than the previous model and being way better technology, I can see where the asking price is coming from. The next negative part is the non-existence of the USB pass-through, which has slowly becoming the new standard for all direct drive bases. Simucube went completely different way with that link, and people used to say that this is closed ecosystem, but in my opinion that is halfway true. As you saw, I just changed the quick release and I continue using my own steering wheels. And of course, with different bases which has that USB pass-through, I was able to wrap around the cable and connect, but with a little bit good cable management, I am capable to achieve that same thing without USB pass-through. However, if that is super important feature for you, I totally understand. That is downside. They went that way because they want to improve stability, and for now the options for wireless wheels is really bad. I mean, there are only expensive models, but again, with few parts you can make that works for the wheels you already own with USB connectivity. And again, as I've said before, they already told me they are working to create Simucube 2 quick release for the Simucube 3, and that's gonna be ready probably January. So if you already have Simucube 2 steering wheel, wireless steering wheel, you will be able to use it with this base. And that being said, those are pretty much the two main negatives for that base. But in my opinion, what I really care about direct drive base is the force feedback performance. And as you saw and as you've heard me before, I really believe this is like 2.0 force feedback in sim racing. feels more alive, it feels more responsive, it feels more rich, and every time I jump on different direct drive bays, the experience feels just a little bit more empty than that. I had the hopes to see that improvement for the Simucube 2, but now I think that won't be possible, and what leads me to believe that is, a few years back they sold their software to Assetto, and I don't think that was by chance. I think they already had in mind to start developing something else like this, and unfortunately I believe how they improved that is not just through the software, but actually the hardware allowed them to be able to do those tweaks and make it feel that way. I know they believed that the Simucube 2 Pro was top of the line for all those years, but in my opinion VNM surpassed them at some point, not just through the telemetry, but in general even without the telemetry the VNM felt a little bit more natural than the Simucube 2 Pro, but now VNM was my most favorite force feedback, but with small differences from the competition. And the Simucube 3, it just, again, it feels more rich, with more details, it speaks a little bit more, it has tons of options to really dial every different effect. There will be also tons of effects coming in the future, and I really hope that the other companies will somehow crack the code and see how Simucube have achieved that. I mean, without applying any filters, the steering wheel feels absolutely natural, and I feel like everything kicks only when it's needed, and there is no oscillation. The spikes, when they arrive, they feel dampened, and again, it just feels super natural.